Hello, everybody, and welcome. It's Saturday, June the 20th, 2026, and it has been one of those weeks where the machines quietly got more capable and the rest of us got a little more nervous about our own job descriptions. SpaceX sailed past Amazon to about $2.7 trillion. ChatGPT, for the very first time, slipped under 50% of the market. We found out OpenAI lost the better part of $21 billion last year. And a clip went round of a Databricks executive cheerfully announcing that 81% of the new databases on his platform are now built by agents, not by people. And the man who has to make sense of all of that, as he does every week, is my old friend and sparring partner, Keith Tier, editor of That Was the Week. Keith's editorial this week has the wonderfully reassuring title, Your Job Title is a Liability. Now I have held the same job title for the better part of 20 years. So naturally, I take this personally. Go on then, Keith. Tell me why my business card is a liability.
Well, your business card might be all right, Andrew. It's the rest of us I'd worry about. No, look, the whole thing's meant to be optimistic, I promise. So a few weeks back, I wrote this piece and I spelt agency in a daft way on purpose, Agentcy, which irritated a lot of people. But I was trying to get at something. There's a difference between automation, where the human just drops out of the loop altogether, and what people mean by autonomy, where the machine wanders off and does its own thing, which, let's be honest, nobody actually wants. The bit I was after is neither of those. It's the middle, it's still you, it's still your judgment, but somebody's handed you a pair of hands, software that'll go off and actually do the thing. What struck me this week is that's the whole conversation now. People just aren't using that word for it. The thing people get backwards is this. The first wave of all this was just tools. You'd ask a chatbot to write a paragraph or draw you something, and it would, fine, lovely. But an agent's a different animal. It doesn't sit there answering you. It goes off into the actual work, picks up other tools, makes the calls, comes back 20 minutes later having done it. Everyone's gut reaction is, well, that leaves less for me to do. I think it's the reverse, honestly. There's more to do and it's harder and it takes a better person to do it. The skill goes up, it doesn't go down.
See, this is the move I want to stop you on because you make it every single week, Keith, and it's always so beautifully reassuring. The very technology that is busy automating somebody's job gets reframed by the people building it as the thing that's going to elevate that same person. It's a gorgeous story if you're the one shipping the agent. It's a slightly less gorgeous story if you're the call center worker or the junior coder or, God help us, the journalist, watching the machine do the first 80% of what you used to be paid for. So convince me this isn't just a comfortable story in a nicer suit.
Because this week it stopped being a theory. Take Pichai. He said something I keep chewing on, that once you've felt what an agent can actually do for you, you stop calling it a tool. You realize it's agency. His example is the interface. The old web you and I grew up on, it was tabs and search boxes and filling in 18 fields on some airline form. The new version is just you hand it over and it goes and does the booking. But somebody built that agent, Andrew. Somebody decided what it's allowed to touch. Somebody's checking what it did. Somebody makes it less stupid next week. That's the job, and it's a bigger one than the job it ate.
And then there's your Databricks man, Ali Godzi, who I have to say delivered the single most chilling sentence of the week with an absolutely enormous grin. 81% of new databases built by agents, software 10 times faster to write. And then, quote, your margin is my opportunity. Keith, that is not a man describing human flourishing. That is a man describing the controlled demolition of an industry and rather enjoying it.
It is a demolition. You're right. I won't pretend it isn't. But look at what it clears the ground for. God's just the new software industry knocking on the old one's door. Think about it for a second. Once software's 10 times cheaper to write, the walls that protected the incumbents fall over. Once your main user is an agent rather than a person, you design the whole product differently. A couple of people can now throw together in an afternoon what used to take a department. So the thing worth owning stops being the big clunky application and starts being the loop around it, the data, the judgment, the rails. It isn't fewer jobs. It's a harder job in different clothes.
All right, this is where you reach for a piece by a developer called Dan Farelli, The Agent Loop Architecture, which I will confess I had to read twice and a bit. You clearly think this dry little engineering note is secretly a manifesto about the future of work. Make the case.
I do. It genuinely lit me up. So Farrelly's point is that an agent's really got three layers to it. There's the loop, which is the easy part, a job on a timer with something deciding what to do next. There's the skill, which is the actual durable piece of work, not some prompt you typed once and lost. Then the orchestrator, which is the grown up, the thing that remembers where you were, retries the one step that failed instead of the whole job, keeps the history. His throwaway line is the good one, that the loop's just plumbing, and the thing that's actually worth money is the skill it calls. Plus one more, which sounds like a footnote, and isn't. These things have to survive a restart. One sentence is more or less the whole new profession.
And the phrase you've fallen in love with for all of this is Satya Nadella's token capital. Now I want to push on that, Keith, because it has the exact shape of a Davos word. The kind of thing that sounds profound on a panel and means absolutely nothing on a Tuesday morning. And in your own venture section this week, Tom Tungus is waving a number at it. Databricks at 6.9 billion in annual revenue, growing 80%, a quarter of it now AI. Is that token capital being real? Or is it just everyone who happens to sit near the inference getting rich for a while?
No, it's real, and Tungus is circling the right thing, even if he's counting it as revenue. So forget how it sounds on a panel for a second. A company's always had human capital, the stuff inside people's heads, the judgment, the know-how. What Nadella's noticing is there's now a second pot. It's the workflows, the evals, the permissions, the loops, the whole record of how this place actually gets its work done, except written down so a machine can run it. The reason it's not froth is that the model isn't where the advantage lives. Models get swapped out every few months. The price caves in, the leader changes. We sit here and watch it happen. What stays yours is everything you wrapped around the model. That's what's still standing when the model underneath you gets replaced by a better one.
And yet, the model layer this week looked like anything but a moat. ChatGPT dropped under 50% share for the first time ever. We learned OpenAI spent $34 billion in order to lose 21. And Moses Sternstein has the essay that genuinely worries me, Frictionful Intelligence. And his whole point is that every single one of these tokens has a real cost that somebody eventually has to pay. He says we're moving out of the token maxing phase, use everything, who cares, and into token rationing with Uber and Meta already tightening the taps. So is your beautiful agentic future about to walk straight into the electricity bill?
Oh, it's going to meet the bill all right. Good. Frankly, that's a healthy thing, not the funeral you're after. Token maxing was the toddler phase. Grab everything off the shelf and see what sticks. Rationing is just the market sobering up and learning to read a price tag. The funny thing is, it helps my case rather than hurting it, because how do you ration well? You need good loops and good evals. You put the cheap little model on the dull jobs and only wake the expensive one when it's worth it. Godzi calls it an advisor setup. That's token capital doing actual work. The lot who panic when the bill lands are the ones who bolted AI onto the side of the building. The ones who built the loop properly just ease off the throttle. Chat GPT numbers the same story, by the way. It isn't slipping because it got dim. It's slipping because trust and where it sits in your day matters more now than the benchmark. Claude's the best at turning people into payers because of where it lives in the actual work. The value is already drifting off the model and onto everything around it.
But the people, Keith, this is where I cannot follow you up into the clouds. Krugman wrote a lovely thing this week, Technology and Social Change. And his point is one I put on your office wall. You don't judge a technology only by what it does to the productivity statistics. You judge it by what it does to how people live, where they work, who has authority, what an ordinary day even feels like. And then Casey Newton very practically asks the question you and I are too comfortable to ask, which is, how do you actually help the knowledge worker who loses the job this year with the mortgage, who is not going to gracefully reinvent herself as a, what did you call it, a loop designer? What do we owe the person in the gap?
No, they're owed a proper bridge. I'll give you that without a fight. And Newton's right to make us say it out loud. My quarrel is what the bridge is for. The instinct, and it's Kurtz's instinct, will come to him, is to build a cushion, something permanent, soften the landing and leave it there. I want a ladder instead, the wage support, yes, but tied to getting people into the new rooms, the loop work, the eval work, the agent operations stuff, which is genuinely appearing at about the rate the old work's vanishing. The benefits should follow the person around, not be bolted to a job title that just turned into a liability. Because the cruel bit here was never the technology, Andrew. It's leaving someone to cross that gap on their own. Isn't inevitable. That's a decision a human being makes.
And yet, the whole drift of the age is to make people cross everything on their own. Two essays in your own stack haunt me this week. Danny Crichton, going back to Postman, amusing ourselves to death. That old warning that a culture wired for spectacle slowly loses the ability to think in public at all. And Freddie DeBoer on how even sport, the last shared, sweaty, democratic thing we had, has been quietly priced for the rich. So the city makes the joy and then sells the good seats back to the financiers. My fear, Keith, is that cheap intelligence doesn't widen the public square. It narrows it and it puts a velvet rope around the good bit.
That's the strongest form of the worry, and I'm not going to brush it off because it's real. But it's the same fight, just one floor up. Sport, the public square, the agents, it always comes down to the same question, which is who ends up owning the thing everyone built together. Which is why I go on about ownership instead of just deploring concentration. If cheap intelligence ends with 9 companies owning every loop, then fine, you get your velvet rope and I'll be standing behind it with you. But if ordinary people and small firms can hold a piece of the capacity themselves, you get something a lot closer to the open world you and I both miss. It isn't settled, which is exactly why it's worth making a noise about now, while it can still go either way.
Which brings me, with as much modesty as I can manage, to my own interview of the week. I sat down on Keen On with the Stanford economist Mordecai Kurtz, whose book is called Private Power and Democracy's Decline, and who is, how shall I put it, not a member of your church. He says the top billionaires took something like $25 trillion between 1980 and 2019, probably 35 by now, while a worker without a degree gained essentially nothing across 30 years. His fix is a 65% top tax rate and some very serious antitrust. And when I put your optimism to him that AI will eventually set us all free, he just quoted Keynes back at me. In the long run, we are all dead. So why is he wrong? And you're right.
I don't think he's entirely wrong, which is the irritating part. He's pointing at a genuine wound. Concentration happened. Ordinary people really didn't get their share of the last wave, and pretending they did is precisely how you end up with the politics we've got, where we part company is the cure. His reflex is to let it all concentrate and then tax a chunk of it back afterwards, redistribute. Mine is to go further up the river and change who owns the thing to begin with. If token capital really is the new wealth, then the fight worth having is making sure a working person, a small firm, can own a slice of it instead of just collecting a check for having been made redundant. One of those treats you as a recipient. I'd rather you were an owner, and on Keynes, yes, fine, in the long run, we're all dead. But we're alive now and we still get to decide who owns the loop. I'd say that's worth turning up for.
Then give me the sane version, because your sections this week have both the sane and the deranged. The deranged is Gerglia Ross on Meta. Engineers, some of the best in the world, reassigned to labeling data, the code quality apparently falling apart, and Arash floating this phrase, I cannot shake AI psychosis in the leadership. And the sane version is on Alex Conrad's show, Jaleh Rezai of Mutiny, who apparently set $10 million of perfectly good revenue on fire, fired her own customers, cut down to 15 people, and rebuilt the entire company around an agent. One of those is a catastrophe. Tell me why the other isn't just a smaller one.
Because they're opposites, and you've spotted the exact hinge between them. Meta bolted agents onto the existing org chart, and then to look suitably AI first, trashed the standing of the very engineers who'd built the place and got an Instagram outage and rotting code for the trouble. That's the psychosis bit, confusing doing more things faster with doing the right thing. Rezier went the other way, which takes real nerve. She didn't ask how to sprinkle a bit of AI on her SaaS. She asked the frightening question, which is, if the agent's the main worker now, what is my company actually for? Most incumbents can't get that question out without flinching. So they flinch and they bolt it on. She started over 15 people, one Snowflake and Uber back inside 6 months. It's a company built around the loop on purpose, instead of having it forced on you when the bill turns up. And Dan Gray and Namdi on the seed stage quietly shrinking. That's the same thing from the investor's seat. The old structures cracking and the value sliding to whoever holds the context.
And hanging over all of it is the geopolitical turn, which got very sharp this week. DA shipped GLM 5.2, an open model, a million token context, benchmarks a whisker off the frontier. And in the very same week, Washington forced Anthropic to cut off access to its top models for foreign nationals. Mark Daly called it diffusion versus denial. China spreading capability around, America locking it up. And his line was, availability is now part of capability. Ben Thompson separately thinks safety is quietly becoming Anthropic's moat. So which is it, Keith? Is denial strength? Or is it a gift to everyone you've just locked out?
It's a gift to everyone you've shut out. And that daily line is going to get quoted for years. Put yourself in the buyer's chair a moment. You run technology for a Canadian bank or a German manufacturer. After this week, you simply can't treat the best American model as an ordinary supplier, not when Washington can reach in and switch it off over your head. So a slightly worse model you can run yourself that nobody can take away suddenly beats a better one that might vanish on a Tuesday. That's the whole reason my startup of the week is Sarvam out of India. They've just raised 234 million to build sovereign AI, Indian language models, India's own stack. A year ago, you'd have filed that under national pride, a bit of flag waving. After the week Anthropic's had, it looks like plain prudence. Every serious country is going to want its own loop, the one nobody in Washington or Beijing can switch off. Sarvam's just the first well-funded version of that. It won't be the last.
Which leaves your post of the week, and I rather love that you ended where you began. Dan Gray, again, with a single line that early stage investing lives in futures that haven't happened yet and therefore aren't in the training data. The best opportunities are precisely the ones the model can't see because the map doesn't exist. Tell me why that's the whole show in a tweet.
Because it pretty much is the whole editorial in one line. The machine is wonderful wherever the map's already drawn, the summaries, the known stuff. But the work that's actually worth a person is out where the map gives up. Gray says it about venture, but it's true of every job we've talked about tonight. Let the agent have the charted ground. You go and work the edge, the part nobody's written down yet. In the end is the answer to Kurtz. Your job title's a liability because it names a task, and the task is the charted bit, the first thing the machine comes for. So don't pin your name to the task. Pin it to the judgment, to whatever it is you do out where the map runs out. Graham had the other half of it this week in an essay about earning $1 billion of all things, when he said the real secret isn't exploitation, it's empathy. Knowing what somebody actually needs, which is the one thing you'll never pull out of the training data because it hasn't happened yet.
Stay updatable, name yourself after the judgment, and set fire to your business card. It is, I'll admit, a better provocation than anything I'll read in the Financial Times this weekend. I remain the resident pessimist. I think rather a lot of people did not sign up to rebuild their identity every 6 months. And I think Kurtz is right that the state is going to have to catch the ones who fall. But you've at least given them something to aim at. And that, I suppose, is the job. That was the week for June the 20th, 2026. Thank you, Keith, as ever. Thank you all for watching and for listening. Stay updatable, whatever it costs you, and we will see you next week.
Thanks, Andrew. Always a pleasure being argued with. See you next week, everyone.